Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Amanda and this is Birch and Lily, where I talk about all sorts of fun knitty things. Today is a video all about my favorite knitting books, or knitting and fiber related books. I have a nice big stack behind me of stuff that I've pulled that I love. I have knitting pattern books, I have knitting technique books, I have books about dyeing yarn, books for designing, all sorts of fun knitting related books that I thought we would go through today. I'm really excited to share them with you. Before we jump on in, there are a few places you can find me on the internet. The main is my website, birchandlilyfiber.com. An update did just go live there. It is another Happy Little Accidents yarn update. So basically, as I'm coming up with new colorways of yarn, anything that didn't maybe quite make the cut for the colorway I was looking for, but is still absolutely beautiful, goes up in the shop. Really discounted. So there is still some yarn available in there if you missed that update that went live on Sunday. Anyways, you can find me on my website. You can find me on Instagram at birch.and.lily. My Ko-Fi, everything I talk about, all that stuff is always linked down below in the description. So let's jump on in. So I think we'll start with the one I have on my Kindle, mostly just for ease of not digging through the stack, I guess. And of course I don't have it pulled up on here, so one moment please. Should probably also turn the light up. I tend to read on my Kindle at night, and then I keep the light down quite a bit so that I don't wake my poor husband up when I'm up until like 1 in the morning reading a book. So this book is called, this is going to be fun with my Kindle, The Knitting Bag of Tricks by Patty Lyons. This book I purchased this summer, and it has definitely changed my knitting game. There are so many tricks in this book. It says, in fact, on the title page, over 70 sanity-saving hacks for better knitting. So I don't know if I would say this is particularly a beginner knitter book, but I would say this is something for someone who has been knitting for a while and is looking to just tweak a couple things here and there, elevate their knitting, make their knitting even better. So it goes through a whole bunch of different sections. The first chapter being the fundamental truths of knitting. There's a chapter on gauge. That one I found to be actually surprisingly valuable. There was a couple things I was doing when I was knitting gauge swatches that I've definitely changed my opinion on now that I own this book. There's stuff with reading patterns, selecting sizes with patterns, all sorts of different cast-on tricks, increase and decrease tricks. I do believe there is something in here to make, for example, your slip-slip knit stitches look just as close as possible as you can to your knit two together. So little tricks like that. There's also a section about problems a lot of knitters have and solutions to them. I remember something in here talking about rowing out in your knitting. So when your purl stitches and your knit stitches are different tensions or different gauges. Very valuable. There's stuff in here for mattress stitch. I loved that section. I did a lot of mattress stitch this summer and I found that very valuable. Picking up stitches, buttonholes, setting in a sleeve. There's an endless wealth of information. I found it really valuable to just read through the whole book and kind of get an idea of what was in here, and then now I have it to look at when I have problems arise. This is a great one too. I'll show this because I don't think it's going to give too much away, but for example, when you're knitting in the round and you bind off, you always get that awkward jog there at the end of your bind off. It tells you how to fix that. So just a really valuable book with stuff that I just didn't even know was possible. Honestly, if you were to pick up any book from today's video, this would be my #1 book. Of course, I'm starting with it, but I just think it's something valuable that everyone can have in their knitting library. And I think everyone's gonna learn something from it. So I think we'll save my knitting like pattern books till the end, because that's probably my biggest section. I love knitting pattern books as like coffee table books just to look through, and the photos are so beautiful and so fun. But of course that means my stack is the largest of those. So I have 3 other books here that we'll talk about before we jump into those. One being on the topic of dyeing yarn. When I started dyeing yarn, my husband picked up this book for me. It's called Dyeing to Spin and Knit, and it is by Felicia Lowe. She is, I believe, the dyer behind Sweet Georgia Yarns, is it? I'm like 99% sure it is Sweet Georgia Yarns. So this book has all sorts of information about color theory, different types of dyes, different ways to dye, preparing dye stock, safety instructions, anything you could possibly need to know about dyeing yarn, how to prepare your yarn and fiber for dyeing, getting different looks from what you've dyed. I will insert for most of these, I think. Obviously I can't with my book on the Kindle, but for the rest of these I'll kind of do some little flip throughs. I'm sure I'm overlaying it right now, in fact, of the books, but yeah, this one was the most valuable book I found when I got into and was interested in starting dyeing yarn. I feel like it was easy to follow what I was reading, and there was just a lot of valuable knowledge in it. Now, I will say, for me, going into dyeing yarn, I did have a background in color theory. I am a hairstylist, and so that's something that I had to learn quite extensively to be a hairstylist. So that may have helped me a little bit, but I do, even with that background, feel like the color theory in here, the section on color theory rather, is quite extensive. So I feel like you could get a pretty good knowledge of dyeing yarn from this book. So really enjoy this one. I go back to it even now, and it's been a great addition to my shelf. If you have been watching the podcast since I started almost 5 years ago now, next month, November, is my next month, November, is my podcasting anniversary. And at that point, I was designing knitting patterns. And these 2 books were definitely, as you can see, I have all sorts of ripped up paper bookmarks in here. These 2 books were definitely my most reached for, my most valuable ones. I guess I'll start with the more basic of the 2. This is 750 Knitting Stitches, Ultimate Knit Stitch Bible. And I don't know if it has a specific author on here, but if you search this on Amazon, it'll pop up really quickly. And as it says, this one is just chock full of 750 different knitting stitch patterns. There's color work in here, there's lace. It's sorted up by all those sections. So you'll have your color work section, your textured sections, your cabled sections, and then it does also have just like basic increasing, decreasing, that sort of stuff in here as well. But if you are interested in designing, or if you even just like to go and tweak or hack or change different things in the patterns that you knit, this one is super valuable. I know that basically every designer has a copy of this book in their library, because when I started and when I was designing, I researched extensively which books designers had, and picked some that were on the more popular side. So this one is great. I don't use it obviously as often, but every once in a while, if I want to, like I said, change something up in a pattern, or add a different border, say to a shawl I'm knitting, or change up the cable in something. Maybe I don't like the cable a pattern calls for, and I can find another cable that will work in here. So very valuable if you're looking at getting into designing, or even just another something to have on your shelf. It says it's 25 bucks US, so not terribly expensive, but quite valuable, and it's really nice and hardcover. I also used the Japanese Knitting Stitch Bible a lot. This one is definitely more complicated, and you definitely need to be able to understand reading charts quite well, because there's no written instructions. Or there might be some in the back, actually. Yes, there are a little bit in the back, but to be honest, from my memory, they're not that helpful. So you definitely need to be adept at reading charts to use this one, but there is all sorts of stuff in here. Believe it or not, I think I even found at one point in here the lace pattern for the bottom of the Tanya by Caitlin Hunter. So that goes to show that a lot of designers use these books, but they're just very beautiful, beautiful lace cable patterns. I also find, like, when I was using these, you can pull like certain small motifs out of these. You don't have to use the whole thing. And then it does have descriptions for what every symbol on the charts means, but sometimes I found those to be a little bit more challenging as well. So definitely I think you need to be a bit more advanced of a knitter for this one. But if I remember correctly, this may even be, yes, this is translated from Japanese to English. So that might explain some of the challenges I had with this one as well. There might be some issues with translation, but I think if you are a little bit more advanced of a knitter and you want to add something into your library that's honestly kind of just like art, this is a great one. I definitely got a lot of use out of it. Okay, this is where the stack gets large. These are all of my favorite pattern books. So 5 of these are from Laine Publishing. I love Laine. They have some of the most beautifully illustrated, I guess photographed, pattern books that I've ever seen. And just, I don't know, they feel like coffee table beautiful books for me. I love just flipping through them. I don't always flip through them looking for something to knit. Sometimes I just flip through them for color inspiration. They're really well done. But the other book, this is a new one to my collection. This is the Knitting for Olive book that just came out. 20 modern knitting patterns from the iconic Danish brand. This is 20 Knitting for Olive patterns. Some of them are new, some of them are translated from patterns that were previously only available in Danish. And it is beautiful. So along with those patterns, you also have information all about the brand Knitting for Olive, where they get their inspiration from, information about their yarn line. I have some Knitting for Olive in my stash that I am dying to try some of their yarn. Information on where they source their yarn. Cute pictures of sheep. All sorts of information on just the brand as a whole, which I love. I've had a chance to read a little bit of it, but I haven't read all the way through. But I am looking forward to sitting down soon in the future and reading through all of the pages at the beginning of the book with all of that information. But then you get into all of the beautiful patterns. And I don't want to give away anything too much, but again, I'll put a little bit of a flip through on here. Oh my gosh, look at the back of this one. Is that not gorgeous? So there's all sorts of patterns in here. There are more basic sweaters, like this one, for example. There's a hat in here. I believe there's a scarf in here. And again, it's just like the Laine books that I'm going to get into, a book where the photography is just so well done. It's so much fun to flip through and look at, and like just gorgeous staple pieces. So I'm really excited to have this one in my collection. I am so grateful also that Penguin House Publishing did send me this book, and they sent me a second copy. So if you haven't seen the post I put up on Instagram on Friday of last week, I am doing a giveaway for a full copy of this beautiful book by Knitting for Olive. So if you don't follow me on Instagram, here is your PSA to go check out my Instagram and enter for this giveaway. It is running until November 3rd on my Instagram. All the information on how to enter that is there. But yeah, I'm so thankful that Penguin House was willing to send me a copy, but also one that I could give away to all of my lovely followers here on YouTube, Instagram, everywhere. So I'm not just saying I love this because it was sent to me. I do love this book, and I'm so excited that I am able to send the joy of this book to someone else. So yeah, this is definitely going. I have a stack of books. You can't really see it right now, but all of my favorite ones, so all these line of books, and now this one as well, are lined up there so that they're easily accessed for when I need a little bit of inspiration. So let's jump into Lineup Publishing. We'll start with this book here because the rest of them are part of a series, but this is a standalone book by my good friend Lindsey Fowler. This is Salt and Timber, Knits from the Northern Coast, and like, look at these photos. Just stunning. And the patterns themselves are stunning too. Lindsey is so good at making patterns that are gorgeous and visually pleasing and but practical at the same time, and so wearable, and like, there's something about Lindsey's design style that really suits my wardrobe, and so I love the patterns in this book. I was lucky enough to be able to test some of these patterns, which is crazy cool to me as well. So I can attest to the fact that they're wonderful. I did test this shawl, for example. Beautiful book. So Lindsey worked really hard on this one. It came out, I believe, last year from Lineup Publishing. Let's see. Yep, 2022. And you should be able to get it at any of your local knitting yarny stores, or you can order from Laine online. The shipping is a little bit expensive as they are in Finland, I believe. There are a lot of patterns in here that I just think are great classic staples. Most, if not all, of the hats, I believe, have children's sizes. I don't know about all the socks, but I'm positive all the hats have children's sizes to them as well. I have knit a couple of the hats in this book for gifts before, so tested some of the stuff in it, and I knit some of the stuff out of it after I received it. Plus, I have a signed copy, which is also really cool to me. And now, let us get into the final four. These are, I believe I have every single one in this series, all of the 52 weeks of books from Laine magazine. So there are 2 sock versions now, a shawl version, and then 52 weeks of easy knits. We might as well start with 52 weeks of socks. I will slide this. The first 2 that they came out with this series, 52 weeks of socks and 52 weeks of shawls, have these dust covers, like half dust covers on them, which I do keep on, but they are slightly annoying. I'm not sure if the copies now are different. I know most of these now do come in a paperback version as well, and so those aren't going to have the dust cover. You can see mine is well loved. I received it when we first got our puppy, and I left the room only to come back and see her chewing on the corner of it. So thankfully she only got to the cover. She didn't get into any of the pages and ruin anything in any of these pages, but yeah. This book, oh my gosh, I've knit so many patterns out of this book. You know, if you've been around this channel for a while, I go in and out of sock knitting. I am currently out of sock knitting, but when I was in, oh my gosh, the socks I knit out of this book, they're beautiful. So, like the name implies, there are 52 patterns, in this book with the intention of you knitting a sock, or a pair of socks rather, a week for the whole 52 weeks of the year. I have never done that. I get too distracted to do that, but there are 52 stunning sock patterns in this book. So I think instead of me rambling on about it, because there's not tons to say, I'll do a flip through of some of the pictures and stuff in here. All of the patterns in this book have written instructions. Some of them do have charts as well, but they're very well done, very well put together. I do think the hardcover that I have has a couple mistakes in it because it was the first edition, but I'm positive that all of those have been fixed by now. But this came out in 2022 and I love it to death. It has got so much use, to the point where the binding is almost slightly starting to loosen up in spots, but they just do such a good job of photographing everything and just making a stunning, like, hand down through the family type book, which is why I love spending the money on the hardcovers of these editions. So that is the first 52 weeks of socks. The next one that did come out was 52 weeks of shawls, but we'll jump into 52 weeks of socks volume 2. So you can see that this is printed differently than the previous one. They got rid of that dust jacket on it, and I do appreciate that because I want to keep it for, like, prettiness sake, but it's really annoying. So this is, again, another book full of sock patterns. I was able to test a couple socks in this book as well. But 52 sock patterns. There's socks. There's also slippers in here. I don't know if there, I think there might even be a pair of yoga socks in here. But again, just beautiful photographs, beautiful sock patterns. If you love sock knitting, or if you just want something gorgeous to look and flip through, this is another one of those books. Gosh, look at these. I feel like with this book compared to the first volume of 52 weeks of socks, there's definitely some more, I hate to say outrageous, but like playful. There's some more playful patterns in here, some more fun stuff, where the other ones are more, or the previous book is more like lacy and classic designs, and here you've got like stuff like this where you're making all these loops, and yeah, very, very unique. Oh my gosh, like, okay, I don't want to give away the whole pattern here. That's about all I can show. But like, Surrey fluffy ruffles. There's just, yeah, lots of unique patterns in this book as well. All of the hardcovers of the Laine magazine as well come with like a, I guess it's a ribbon bookmark attached to the book. So love this one as well. Let's jump into 52 weeks of shawls. So this one has the dust jacket as well. So as the name implies, this is 52 shawl, cowl. I think there's cowls in here as well, but like shawl. Anything you would wear around your neck, I guess, is the best way to put it. So I definitely don't reach for this one as much, but again, I love just flipping through it for the photos and just the inspiration, and I haven't knit anything out of here yet. I'm not sure. But I just can't get over how gorgeous this book is and how well it's put together. You can tell they've spent a lot of time and put a lot of thought into the presentation of their books. And the patterns are always gorgeous. There are a lot of like known designers in these, or more well-known designers, but there's also newer designers, which I love. fun to just go through the books and see like, hey, I know that designer, or oh no, this person's new, and then I go down a rabbit hole on Ravelry and I'm looking through all of their patterns and finding new things and all sorts of inspiration. Look at that. That's so pretty. So, love the shawl version too. Out of all of the 52 weeks books in the series, I would say it's probably my least reached for, but it's still beautiful, and if you're a shawl knitter, a great one. Now, the final one here. I think, okay, so I said I would get the Knitting Bag of Tricks book. I would also, if you love knitting for olive patterns, obviously I would grab the Knitting for Olive book, but if you're more of a beginner knitter, I would do this one. 52 Weeks of Easy Knits. So these are all more so basic patterns. There's no specific theme to it. So there are sweaters, there are hats, there are scarves, there are shawls, there are, I just flipped by like a little hair tie. I guess that's a headband. There is literally everything in here. So basic t-shirts, like this beautiful basic tee. There's some stuff in here that looks a little bit more complicated, but when you read through the pattern, it's not. I just think if you're looking to invest in something that you're going to be able to get a lot of use out of as a beginner knitter, I think this is the book for you. I want to knit this one. It is, I can't pronounce the designer's name or anything, but it is on my list for sure to knit. And it's so easy. When you look at the pattern, it's like, oh, I didn't realize it was that simple because it looks so beautiful and so complicated, I guess is the best way to put it. But yeah, I think for a beginner knitter who's looking to invest in a book that's going to give them tons of projects that they can knit, and a book that they can get a lot of use out of, this is a great one. Obviously, it's not going to teach you new techniques, but YouTube is fantastic these days. If there's something you don't know how to do, you honestly just have to search the word, and you've got hundreds of YouTube videos popping up showing you how to properly do techniques. So I think if you're willing to jump into something and willing to learn, that this is an incredible book full of knits. I got this for Christmas last year and it's been so much fun to look through. I spent probably a good couple hours after I got it on Christmas just flipping through and looking at all of the beautiful patterns. Look at this. So pretty. So that is all I've pulled for this video. I obviously flip-flop and change my mind all the time, but these are the books that right now while I was looking through my collection stood out to me the most. So like I said, top 3 that I think I would grab if I was you. Knitting Bag of Tricks by Patty Lyons is amazing for anyone who's a little bit more advanced than a beginner knitter. 52 Weeks of Easy Knits has so many different options for gift knitting or more beginner knitters or just something really pretty to look through. And I love this new Knitting for Olive book that came out as well. It's so cool to be able to learn all about the company and get a whole bunch of patterns that were not available in English before, are new. Just Knitting for Olive has a lot of classic staple patterns, so I'm really excited to be able to knit some things out of this book as well. So make sure you go to my Instagram, it'll be linked down below, and enter in the giveaway for this book because I will be closing that November 3rd and drawing the winner and getting that prize shipped out. And let me know, what are your favorite knitting books? Let's share everything down in the comments. I'm sure I'm gonna learn a whole bunch of new books from you guys, and it's so much fun to read through the comments and everyone can share what they love and what they use the most, and we can all learn from each other. With that, if you haven't subscribed already, please consider doing so. It helps out the channel so much. Hit that like button and that notification bell, and join me again next Tuesday for another video. Bye!